Here, and this time it's a little personal. He's under attack from the folks at Microsoft. He'll explain why he doesn't feel he deserves it. He also has his. Somebody sent me that Microsoft I'll add this later.
The ethical thing.
Yeah.
Actually, that factors into my first story.
All right. Well, let's talk. You're heading for item 1. This time it's personal.
I went on what some people would describe as a rant last week about the Windows Phone situation.
Last week, for the last 7 weeks, I think.
Yeah, I'm not really keeping count, but okay, fair enough.
I am.
So, unfortunately, after that happened, there was a recording of the official Windows Phone podcast where they brought on some guys from Microsoft who then, without mentioning my name, pretty much defamed me for about 20 straight minutes.
Really?
Oh, no, it's pretty bad.
Wow.
And I just want to state for the record that, aside from the personal aspect of this, because one of those guys is actually someone I consider to be a friend.
Oh, dear.
The basic gist of what they were trying to say is that the reporting that's been going on out there about whether carriers can block the updates and so forth is incorrect. We never said that, et cetera, et cetera. And they have, in fact, said that publicly many times. My reporting on this is, in fact, correct. And I sort of take exception to this. But I think what I'm going to boil it down to is they're under a lot of pressure, of course. Yes. I mean, I think we need to maybe look at it from their perspective as well. And, of course, these people have careers at the company and so forth. So if they have to throw me under the bus, I don't work there, okay, I'm okay with it. But I would say it like this, and I've written it like this, which is this is essentially a battle of semantics that I'm saying, because, by the way, they said, I mean, I reported what they said, but I'm saying that carriers can block an update for one update cycle, which is correct. In fact, it's already happened. But what they're saying is something more along the lines of we're working with our carriers who are partners. We're in fact, the exact quote was something, we're looking out for the users of Windows Phone. In other words, we're working together to make sure everything is exactly right, that we won't let any updates ship until everyone agrees that it's okay, which is why this has been taking so long. So different ways of looking at the same thing, I guess, to be polite about it. But I just want to be very clear that what I've said about this blocking all along has been exactly what they told me.
Did they tell you on the record, or, I mean, is there...
Absolutely.
Okay, so you can point to that.
I take... they've said these things publicly, too. You can go back... Listen, they're very careful to work around the word blocking, but if you read their blog post trying to explain what happened, and you look at what they write about the carriers, they very clearly say carriers can do this and have, they don't say have done this.
We know they can do this. They always do it. It's not just Microsoft. Everybody.
I guess so.
Well, look at Samsung. The Samsung Android phones weren't updated. Some of them still are not updated, even though they were updated in Europe. They weren't updated here because of obviously not because of Samsung, because of the carriers.
Well, look, I at that reviewers workshop that I keep mentioning, I said point blank to these people, you don't understand. Carriers are evil. They don't care about their customers. What they care about is selling you a new phone.
Right.
There were representatives of the carriers, one of the carriers at least, in the room at the time, and it was a little uncomfortable. But the truth for them, I couldn't care less. I speak the truth. I'm sorry. These people are not out to help you in any way, shape, or form. They're just not. They never have been, and they've proven through this experience that they still aren't.
Well, let me say one thing in their defense.
Yes.
The world has changed out from underneath them because, when we were talking feature phones, there weren't updates, or they weren't significant updates, so they don't... It
has, but it hasn't, right? So,
I mean, they've benefited from it.
Well, the iPhone obviously changed everything, other than that the iPhone didn't change anything except for itself, apparently, because no one else is following this model. Right. I mean, there, as so many people have pointed out to me, I think when you look at my arguments about what's going on with Windows Phone, you basically fall into one of two camps. Well, I guess one of three camps. You could not care at all, I suppose. But of the people who care, most of the feedback I've gotten has been, thank you for speaking up. We're very frustrated about this as well. Microsoft needs to help their customers, yada, yada, yada. And then there's this small group of people who say, you're a whiner, you're complaining, what's your problem? Android is just like this. They have fragmentation. I couldn't care less about Android. What I'm talking about is Windows Phone. And what I'm also talking about is when you have to look at the whole world. What have other platforms gotten right? And in this case, the iPhone got the software update thing right. And how you couldn't follow that model in a post-iPhone world, to me, is unclear. And I just don't understand it, and nor do I agree with it. So
I'm on your side, but again, I'll just pose the other side of the argument, which was that Apple was able to strong-arm AT&T with the strength of the iPhone and get them to do something that no carrier had ever done before.
And yes, in 2006, seven.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was the time frame for the negotiations.
Right.
Every carrier turned down Apple until they got to Singular at the time, which became AT&T Wireless.
That's true. Verizon didn't want to deal with it. Yep.
Because they do things a certain way.
Yep.
Carriers are evil. They don't want to give up control.
Yes,
they are. I'm sorry, they're just evil. And to say otherwise is just absolutely clueless. These companies do not care about you at all. So, you need to look out for yourself. I mean, look, if Windows Phone had shipped on day one in a complete, non-buggy and feature-complete state, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The reason this is an issue is because there's so much work that needs to be done. And I feel very strongly that in this first year, Microsoft needs to be moving much more quickly, communicating much more effectively, i.e. at all, about what they're doing, and explaining to customers what their plans are, whatever they may be, to update this thing over time. So this is just a fundamental disagreement, whatever.
Can I ask a question that's somewhat akin to waving a red flag in front of a bull that's standing in front of a china shop that has lots of Dresden dolls in it?
Yep.
Is that update really that important? I mean, really, the two things we've talked about so far are cut and paste and sorting better in the marketplace.
No, Leo, listen,
how
this is going to be
important
the biggest. No, this is not about the update. This is about updating in general. My point is, this update's going to be a non-event. We're going to be excited about this for 15 minutes.
Okay.
When it happens, it's going to be the biggest thing in the world for 15 minutes. There's nothing. I mean, listen, yes, I would like to have better marketplace search. Yes, I would like to have faster application launching. Cut and paste, whatever. I mean, I'm glad to have it. I don't care either way. But, and then we're done. That's the whole discussion about this update. So that's not the issue.
Okay.
The issue is updates in general. My point is there are features missing from this phone and have been from day one that have never been addressed and won't be addressed for months and months and maybe years and years down the road because they're moving so slowly. There is a very good possibility, unless something is changing, and I do have some hints, by the way, that something is changing, but that this first update and that bigger Mango update, which will also not, unfortunately, be as sweeping as people would like, will literally be it for this entire year. That's incredible. I mean, and not the good kind of incredible. So I think I've pushed it as far as I can push it. I think I'm already persona non grata over at this particular team.
That's a shame. That's really a shame.
Well, I do this out of what I call tough love, I guess. But
if there's somebody more clearly a supporter of Windows Phone, I don't know who that is.
That's been my argument all along. So I don't know either. So I've tried and I will continue trying. Listen. I love the platform. This apparently is not obvious to people. I'm sure they got a little sensitive when I used the word lie because they did and continue to lie about what I've reported and what the situation is with the carriers and so forth. But I'm sorry. That's what I do. I call it as it is. So sorry. But you had mentioned this thing about Microsoft being one of the more ethical, maybe the most ethical technology company according to a recent study, and that's hilarious to me in the light of this little fiasco. But I would just say that obviously Windows Phone is, one of the smaller parts of Microsoft. Microsoft is a multi-headed monster in some ways. I mean, and there's no such thing as we've discussed as Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft is many things, and I have different dealings and different kinds of relationships with different groups at Microsoft. And it's like night and day, depending on who you're talking to and who you're meeting with or whatever it is. So I typically have very good relationships with these people. I thought I had a very good relationship with Windows Phone originally, but I have to say, obviously, over time, it's been kind of a downward spiral, starting not with anything I was doing, but eventually it just becomes so frustrating. It's hard not to, kind of lash out at that. So anyway, this update, like you said, it's not a big deal. It will happen eventually. It will happen this month, hopefully, like they said. And when it does, neat. But, again, my big thing is we need to monthly, maybe, quarterly at the least. I mean, to me, it just seems like there's a minimum that needs to be happening to improve the platform. And we're way below that. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying, and you've said it before, and I'll just reiterate, is that it's we're in late stage smartphone territory here, and Microsoft doesn't have time to mess around.
Right. I mentioned I had relationship advice for these people earlier. My